Well, inside the DD pyramid, we've unhooked the inner. I will say the pegs, it did take some effort to pull out, so they had quite a good pulling power. So they may very well have been okay for the main tent, but I would have been reluctant with it. Now look, I do think this is a major design flaw. Now I know clearly the idea is they've put this vent here, for ventilation. I do think that rain will be able to get in here. Now I have, as you can see, tied it out so it's not flapping around or anything, but I do think that rain will come through. Now there is obviously a Velcro point here where you could secure that shut with Velcro and not tie that point out. Now that might hold enough, in severe weather, that one tiny piece of Velcro holds that down, but that's in a windward position. Really, you could almost do with a strip of Velcro across there, to well and truly hold that in position. So I'm not completely convinced how weather resistant this would be. I will say that it's been like that the entire time, and I've had some pretty horrendous weather, and I will say I didn't get wet. I didn't notice any wetness as such. I'm just pointing it out. It's just something that you probably just need to be aware of, that it's possibly okay. But it could also be a bit of a weakness because it is quite damp, up here. All of this is damp, but that could equally be condensation. There's a lot of condensation in here. So yeah, that's probably, that would have been better given they've got this big patch up here above the door. Probably would have been better having that above the door than it's in the opposite direction of the wind. So I don't quite understand the philosophy of putting it behind. But you can see now with the inner collapsed, you can see that I probably haven't pitched it absolutely perfectly. But you can also see that the measure there, that's 135, so I've got it on at least 140, and even that's barely, long enough. So I will try pitching it again, obviously, but I'm just pointing at everything that I can, notice. Looking at the stitching here, is that stitching, potentially going to fail there? I will check all the other stitching. I did notice that one lot of stitching wasn't very good, and it's probably that one. I will check all the other stitching when I get home and I get around to it. But you can see that the back end of it, does blow in, a lot. The DD Pyramid ground sheet clearly did well, because this is under the ground sheet, and as you can see, we were not wet inside it. So the ground sheet did do well. So you can see the outside has absorbed a lot of moisture. It hasn't just run off, it has soaked in, whereas I think normally the outside, it tends to run off on the really good quality stuff rather than actually soak into the tent. But you can see, it has stood up pretty well to this to this open moorland. We are very, very open here, and it has stood up well. I would not be using it again in these conditions. This is a bit too much for it, in all honesty, but it has done, you know, it has done well. So I'm going to take it apart now. Lassie bouncing around there. So I'm just going to drag everything out carefully. As I have mentioned before, this trip I lost a lot of footage on a corrupted SD card. I did try every single way to get the footage back, including softwares that cost me a few £100, and they didn't work, and I ended up having to get, luckily I was able to get 50% back on them, which isn't exactly very much. This particular piece of footage here I put onto my Osprey TALON 44 packing video, so please check that video out. And of course I will do another video in more detail on the DD Pyramid XL in the future. You can see where we were pitched just briefly. So that was my porch area there, flooded, and that was my sleuthing area. That's my sleuthing area, also flooded there. So, and there's quite a lot of ground moisture all around here. Thank you for watching the DD XL Pyramid video. You saw me putting it in the stuff sack there, you know, very briefly, and I put it in the front of the Osprey 44 pack, along with the inner also went in the front. So that's pretty much everything about that. Apologies if I didn't pitch it perfectly. We will get it out again, and the pyramid tent, and we will have another play with it and the tent another time. Thanks very much for watching from Lassie and from me and this howling wind. We will see you next time. Like and subscribe and hit the notification button, please. And if you like watches and watch related things, and sports watches, I can't show my Garmin so easily, Garmin watches and G-Shocks, Rolex, things like that. So wild about watches, just subscribe there.